Imagine waking up every morning still feeling exhausted, or worse, struggling with blood pressure that just won't come down despite your best efforts. A friend of mine faced both of these challenges, battling sleep apnea for years. But here's the kicker: once he started treating his sleep apnea, his blood pressure surprisingly returned to normal. This story reveals a profound truth, especially when we consider that high blood pressure is a major risk factor for cognitive decline. It begs the question: could your sleep quality be silently impacting your brain's future? This story reveals a profound truth, especially when you consider that sleep apnea isn't just about snoring. It's a silent force that can cause or worsen over 40 different diseases. We're talking about cognitive diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, exasperating conditions like diabetes, and playing a significant role in chronic inflammation disorders like lupus and fibromyalgia. The list seems endless. So, for too long, the critical connection between sleep, breathing, and overall health has been very overlooked. But if you're caring for someone with dementia or simply striving to protect your own cognitive future, listen closely. There are better options and more profound insights than you may realize to help safeguard both your brain and overall health. And today, we're uncovering the vital, often missed link between sleep apnea and Alzheimer's disease, offering crucial information that could change how you approach health for yourself and those you care for. Welcome to Fading Memories, your source for all things dementia caregiving. I'm your host, Jen Fink, and I have had 3 generations of loved ones with dementia, and I'm here to share the knowledge I've gained with you. Welcome back, Fading Memories listeners. It's Jen Fink, your host and caregiver pal. With me today is Kirk Huntsman from Vivos. We're talking about sleep apnea, how it dramatically affects our health, and how his company might have a better solution than what's out there today. So thanks for joining me, Kirk.
Hey, thank you for having me, Jennifer. It's great to be here.
So why don't you start off by giving the listeners like your background, maybe a little bit about Vivos, and then we'll talk about sleep apnea because it affects an awful lot of people worldwide. I wasn't aware it was that profound. It's not quite the right word, but that'll work.
That'll work. That'll work. Yeah. Let's start with sort of the prevalence of this disease globally, and then we'll sort of drill down into how it affects individuals. But globally, there are over 1 billion people that are estimated to have some form of breathing and sleep disorder, and the most prevalent of that is obstructive sleep apnea. Obstructive sleep apnea is literally a time, typically during sleep, when the airway experiences a closure, a temporary closing off and that's called an apnea, where the patient stops breathing, literally stops breathing. And eventually the body's system sort of neurologically responds, and there's a jolt or a gasp or an awakening. And there are technical terms for all these things, but just to keep it really simple. And so those kinds of conditions are actually experienced by hundreds of millions of people around the world. About 80 million, it's estimated in the United States, about 80 million adults have obstructive sleep apnea, and estimates as high as 10 million children. About 20% of children are nowadays experiencing obstructive sleep apnea. Unfortunately, you would think that medicine would have come up with some solution that was really good and efficacious and all that. Unfortunately, the biggest breakthrough, we've only known about sleep apnea in the medical literature for about 60 years. It first appeared in the early to mid 1960s and began, the research began in earnest to try to figure out what this was and how it affected people. And now, as we go into this century, we've been discovering things, just the way that our sleep and breathing are not only interconnected in themselves, but how they influence and affect our neurology, our brain function, our endocrine system, our cardiovascular system, and we now know that obstructive sleep apnea either causes or is comorbid with, meaning it's found in conjunction with. There's up to 40 chronic diseases that are either caused by or made worse by the presence of obstructive sleep apnea. So this is a major health concern. I know it's a major health concern of the new administration and the MAHA guys in Washington. And I know that as they begin to address chronic illness in children and adults, that they're going to be launching, initiatives to help people breathe better and sleep better. And I think Vivos is going to be right at the front of it. Our contributions, just to bring this home here, our contributions are a novel oral appliance device technology that actually has the ability to remodel and restore a human airway to its full form and function. And so in about 9 to 12 months, we can actually take a person that has severe sleep apnea or moderate sleep apnea or whatever, and actually fix them, which is different than trying to monitor their sleep apnea every night and manage it with a CPAP device for the rest of their life. So in Vivos patients, it's a treatment that they go into for a short period of time, relatively short period of time, and then come out the back end with a big, nice set of pipes that they can breathe through for the rest of their life. That's our contribution to the science and to the state of the art.
Well, that sounds wonderful because I don't think I could deal with a CPAP machine. I wouldn't want something on my face. And the noise, like I am not one of those white noise machine gals.
Yeah.
Fan blowing all night after a while. If it's not on low, it's like that noise just after a while drives me bananas. So I'm not a good candidate for a CPAP machine.
Company. You're in great company. They're about half of the patients who embark on the CPAP journey end up abandoning it at some point. Usually within the first 6 months or a year, they just give up on it. And for the others, they reluctantly go along and use it because they don't want to die in their sleep. I mean, everybody wants to wake up the next morning. And the truth is that CPAP does a lot of good for a lot of people. It's just an obnoxious intrusion into our lives and to our bedrooms and to our intimacy and all those kinds of things. And it's just like, there's got to be a better way. And we think we have at least one of the better ways that are out there.
I have a quick personal story. A friend of mine had chronic high blood pressure, pretty much, diet, exercise did not fix the problem. Mm. When he started using his CPAP machine, his blood pressure normalized, which most caregivers should know. High blood pressure is really not a good thing. It's not a good thing across the board, but it's definitely not a good thing for your brain health. Which leads me to the question, you said there's like 40 chronic diseases that apnea can cause or is tied to. Can you list some of the maybe not as obvious ones? Because I'm curious.
Well, it begins with the all of the big ones, right? So you're talking about diabetes, you're talking about cancer, you're talking about cardiovascular disease and various kinds of cardiovascular disease, stroke, hypertension, hardening of the arteries, AFib. You have all kinds of different levels of that. You have glaucoma. You have other kinds of things with children. In children, you have chronic allergies. You have bedwetting, what's called nocturnal enuresis, which is bedwetting at night. That's just sort of the technical term for it. You have mental disorders such as early onset dementia, Alzheimer's. All of those things are just really to sort of paint the larger picture. Fibromyalgia, a lot of metabolic disorders are made worse by or caused by obstructive sleep apnea. So one of the things that happens, let's just talk a little bit more in depth, because I think it's important for patients to understand. The importance of sleep boils down to several things, but one of the main things that we've now learned about what happens at rest during our sleep is that when our bodies get in, when our minds and our bodies get into the deep restful sleep, there's a system, it's almost like a sewage system on our brain that flushes our brain and flushes the toxins out of our brain during that period of time. And it's actually there's actually fluid. It's called the glymphatic system. And the glymphatic system takes the cerebral fluids, and it actually flushes those fluids and washes away the toxins that have built up during the day. When we have an obstructive sleep apnea condition, or when we are constantly disrupting our sleep, and we fail to get into that deep REM sleep, those toxins don't flush. And when they don't flush over a period of time, like sludge, it just builds up in our brain, and it has you can see it on the radiographs. You can see it, and the doctors know it's there, and there's a problem. Um, the cerebral spinal fluid, it's called CSF fluid. When that fluid is unable to circulate, it's unable to properly um, flush, and there's lots of things that the cerebral spinal fluid does. It cushions the brain. The brain is encased in this fluid, and it goes up and down our spinal cord. So it's not just a sewage system. It actually serves multiple purposes, but one of the main things it does at night is it actually serves to flush these toxins out. And when you don't flush those toxins out, they damage the brain, and they contribute to some of these early onset dementia and Alzheimer's. And we're drawing more and more connections between the importance of deep sleep and the ability to avoid the unfortunate conditions of dementia and Alzheimer's.
That makes sense. I knew that the brain basically gets a bath at night from the spinal fluid, and it also sorts the memories of the day and
Yes.
files them away. So if your brain isn't sorting and filing your memories, that's one of the reasons, at least in my 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 phony MD degree, that they lose short-term memory, because it's like those things are not. It's like having stacks of paper on your desk. You think you might know where that paperwork is, but not likely. Okay, I do have one question. Do they have any idea why sleep apnea might cause glaucoma? Because my paternal grandmother lived with glaucoma. Let me think if I can do the math really quick. For like 40 something years. I was 12 when she got it, and I was 53 when she died. So yeah, that's about 40 years. If I'm doing the math right.
Yeah. So if you map out the glymphatic system in the brain, one of the main areas of drainage is right behind the optic nerves. And they're not sure, at least I haven't read any definitive studies that have demonstrated exactly what's going on. But we do know that one of the main areas of where this fluid congregates and where it flushes is right behind the optic nerves. Now, whether that's there's probably some design in that, right? There's a reason for that, but I'm not sure exactly what the connection is there. But we do know it has been tied to glaucoma and certain visual ocular type conditions as people age, especially. So I think one of the things to keep in mind is that the research around sleep and breathing disorders and obstructive sleep apnea itself, that research is fairly young and fairly new in terms of There's not as much of it as we need in order to draw the connections that need to be drawn. But as we go, there's hardly a month that goes by that it seems like I'm not hearing of something like the glaucoma, for example. If you'd asked me that question 3 years ago, I wouldn't have listed glaucoma at all, because I don't think that those connections had been tightly knit. But we're seeing more and more lupus. I mean, things that you just never would have, any type of metabolic condition, any type of like fibromyalgia, any type of degradation of the body's ability to energize, process energy, be robust and sort of out there, is really we're seeing more and more of those kinds of things in the literature, as well as some of the inflammatory diseases. Chronic inflammation just creates all kinds of issues in the human body. And so the inflammation in particular, as it pertains to cardiovascular disease, there's a lot of connections now and a lot of effort toward, in fact, I just found one here recently where the propensity towards obstructive sleep apnea and the presence of obstructive sleep apnea, it diminishes the antioxidant levels, especially the glutathione, which has all kinds of properties to help reduce inflammation. And when you have obstructive sleep apnea, the lack of glutathione, or the decrease in glutathione levels, is thought to accelerate some of those processes of inflammation, because there's just not enough. The body is having a hard time responding to all the oxidative stress, and the endothelial linings of our blood vessels and in our nasal cavities and whatnot, it just can't keep up. And so a lot of good, interesting research happening today. A lot of it is actually focused in on understanding the connections between the lymphatic system and what's going on, and how it's actually directly affected by the presence of obstructive sleep apnea. But boy, if there is one thing I want your listeners to take away, from this interaction we're having, it's really the need to get tested, even if you don't know that you have sleep apnea, or you don't snore. A lot of people equate snoring with sleep apnea, but it's not always the case. And so if you are, let's just say, well, really of any age, as part of an annual physical, you should request that your doctor prescribe or write a script for you to get a home sleep test. There's lots of places you can do that. Your insurance should cover it. And it's just an essential element nowadays of understanding your body and your body functions and what you might be happening. We have so many patients that never thought they had a problem, never, and very fit, highly trained athletes that find that they have sleep apnea, or they have some condition related to their breathing and sleep that is actually impeding their ability to reach peak performance. So many different erectile dysfunction in men, that another condition related to obstructive sleep apnea. Postmenopausal, perimenopausal women experience high levels of obstructive sleep apnea. Pregnant women experience high levels of obstructive sleep apnea. So, I mean, it just goes on and on and on about the conditions that we go through normal life, and at some point in our lives, we're probably going to have sleep apnea. We need to be aware of it, and we need to know what it does, because if it gets to a disease, if it gets to a state where it becomes a severe sleep apnea condition, then, and that's not hard to reach. The bar's fairly low for that,
Mm.
but it'll lop 10 years off your life. You don't live as long. And so this is a really serious condition. This is not about everybody joking around that old Uncle Bob, snores like a chimney or whatever. I mean, this has gone so far beyond those old stereotypes where we made fun of people with this. This is now okay, there's red flags going up, sirens going off. This is a all hands on deck. Let's figure out what's going on and how we can treat it.
Well, so what are some of the not as obvious signs that people aren't aware of or paying attention to?
Well, I think the easiest thing is if you are waking up in the morning and you feel like you didn't get a good night's rest. If you wake up in the morning and you do not feel rested, something's going on that's not right. And so that's the first sign. If you have excessive daytime drowsiness, that's another sign. If you have no energy during the day, if you're feeling like you need to take a nap at right after lunch or in the afternoon, if you got to have if you're making 3 Starbucks runs during the day, something's not right. And this will save you money as well because you don't need to caffeine up as much, right? If your body's functioning the way that our bodies were designed to function, then we don't need to make a caffeine run morning, noon, and night. This is and so I think the fatigue element, the metabolic aspect of things are the first things that people notice, but they kind of just think it's just, maybe I'm just maybe it's age related, maybe it's, maybe I ate too much, maybe I don't know. There's all kinds of reasons why, but if this is happening where you're waking up in the morning and if you're not sleeping well, or you're intermittently waking up throughout the night, or your bed partner is saying, "Hey, you stop breathing and you gasp for air," or I worry about some of the excessive snoring. All of these things are signs that you've got something going on. Now, if you have hypertension, if you're a male and you have a neck that is at least 17 inches or greater, if you're an athlete and you have a large neck, a lot of football players, a lot of other players that lift weights, weightlifters, they'll have these big necks. If your neck size as a male is 17 inches or more, there's a 96% chance you have sleep apnea. If you're a female and that size is 14 inches, there's a high, I don't know if it's the same 96%, but it's very high correlation in the female population to having sleep apnea. So I just think there's a lot of different ways in which you could kind of have some telltale signs. Hypertension, again, is another easy one. If your blood pressure is chronically high, you need to get in and have a sleep test, and you need to ask your doctor. A lot of doctors, primary care physicians and non-sleep specialists, they do not have a lot of formal training in sleep, and so you need to be the one as the patient to sometimes encourage your doctor to prescribe a sleep test just to have that assurance that you don't have that condition. Because I'm here in Denver, Colorado at altitude, and we're the Mile High City, and in the Mile High City, I mean, we've done random tests out there in a certain audience, and we've had them take this tests overnight, come back the next day, and we've seen as high as 88% of the patients having sleep apnea. At sea level, it's less, but it's still nationwide. About half of the population in any given population demographic are going to have sleep apnea.
Good Lord. I knew it was a problem. I didn't realize it was that big a problem.
It's big.
I'm gonna measure my neck because I do lift weights, not super heavy, because there's so much you can do in the home garage.
That's good.
But my husband has a doctor's appointment this week because he had a weird, his body had all over tremors for 45 minutes, which prompted a trip to the ER. And they're like, his blood pressure was fine.
I didn't mention Parkinson's disease. That's another one.
Yep.
Another correlation there.
Yeah, let's see, his blood work was all good. His blood pressure was good, like really good, which was annoying. Because I get white coat syndrome. I don't actually refer to it that way. I think it's, get stuff done, jump in the car, drive to the doctor. I think that's why every time I go to the doctor, my blood pressure is a little high. It's not bad high. At home, it's great.
Yeah.
At the dermatologist office, it's great.
Yeah.
So it's just
that's the low risk medical office right there, right?
Well, I've only been twice. It's for the all over body scan because my previous health company never suggested it. And for those people who aren't watching YouTube or haven't seen any of my video clips anywhere else, I'm kind of at risk for sunburn all the time. And
Okay.
I've had plenty of sunburns in my life. You don't get enough sunscreen in certain spots. It's like, dang it. And thankfully, no issues with my skin so far. Yay.
Good. Yeah.
I keep trying to make sure I get sunscreen everywhere. So the first time I went, I was a little unnerved because the friend with the sleep apnea and the recovered blood pressure, corrected blood pressure, he has had all kinds of skin issues and all kinds of ugly treatments. And I was like, ooh, I don't want any of those. I hope I'm okay. So,
Yeah, really.
um, yeah, but I try to avoid the doctor. Plus, I guess they didn't do my blood pressure at the ear, nose, and throat doctor. I don't remember. Let's see. I was going to ask a question. So we got the neck measurement. So, well, tell me. So we know that the general treatment is a CPAP machine. I think they've got slightly better ones that are not quite as wearing a scuba mask kind of feel. But tell me about you laughing. Is that a good description of those things?
Yeah, I hear all kinds of descriptions, but look, the essential technology behind CPAP has not really progressed in 45 years. These things came out in the early 1980s. There was a Dr. Sullivan over in Australia who introduced it, the first CPAP machine and the concept. And since that time, now there's been refinements to the technology, but the essential core principle of basically blowing up your airway and holding it steady through a closed system is still more or less the same today as it was then. And there are variations on the theme, but if you think about it, all they're doing with CPAP is managing the disease state. It doesn't fix anything. It gives you the ability to live to fight another day. And if you want to haul those things around on your vacations and your holidays and every time you go, out of town or whatever, great, then go for it. But if you really want to address the problem, there are new ways to address the problem, non-surgical, non-invasive, non-pharmaceutical, and it just why not, right? Why not? Why not have the biggest set of pipes that you could possibly have for your genetic type and get somebody that can do that non-surgically. Surgical procedures to address sleep apnea they're expensive. They're not always that successful. There's the neurostimulation devices that you see out there that are on television a lot. That's another barbaric kind of an approach to this thing. And I just there's alternatives. And I think the message we have for the world is that, hey, make sure you're an informed patient. If you want to pick if you want to pick a CPAP as your choice, great. Just know that there are alternatives. And what's happened though, unfortunately, Jennifer, is that the medical profession has gotten so routine to say, oh, you have sleep apnea, here's your CPAP. You have sleep apnea, here's your CPAP. Well, they treat everybody as if they're the same. And the truth is that your sleep apnea is unique to your body and your age and your lifestyle and everything else. And somebody else's sleep apnea is not. And so to have a one trick solution for everybody, we think at Vivos is a disservice. And
When
so
you said non-invasive, non-pharmaceutical, and non-surgical, you're speaking my language.
there you go.
So tell us more about your system treatment. Not sure it was.
So
Now I'm intrigued.
yeah, our technology basically says, look, you have a collapsing airway. Your airway's collapsing. That's the apnea. You probably have an underdeveloped set of jaws. Your upper jaw is called your maxilla and your mandible. Your mandible may be retruded, it's too far back, or it may be too narrow. Your upper jaw may be too narrow and underdeveloped. If you're Asian, you probably have a phenotype, what's called, a genetic phenotype where you're predisposed to that just because of the way your your cranium is built, right? And the bone positions that relative to Caucasians or others. So depending on your genetic phenotype, depending on sort of how you developed, especially in the early stages of your childhood, you may have, if you have a retruded jaw, if you have a narrow upper palate, if you brux at night, if you're grinding your teeth at night, that's a condition related to sleep apnea. So all these things, what our oral appliances do is over the course of 6 to 9 months, they reposition, remodel the upper and lower arches, and they reposition the jaws forward just a little bit. Now, some patients go into treatment, especially women with retruded mandibles, to move their jaws forward and have a better profile. And they look better. They actually have, especially if they've had a big gummy smile, that will often resolve within a couple of months. And so they don't no longer have that gummy smile. You see women sometimes, it's particularly true of women, but they'll kind of cover they're embarrassed by their smile because it shows too much of the gums. But that can all be fixed non-surgically now, and it's really getting the cranial bones to be adjusted in the right place. When you do that, you actually the airway pops open the way it's supposed to be, and you tend to get a larger, more patent airway, less prone to collapse, and that's the goal.
So it basically sounds like a retainer.
It's kind of like a retainer, but it's, if you go to your dentist, you say, hey, put a retainer in, I want to fix my airway. It's the wrong kind of thing. It's not, there's special technology that's built into it that evokes the changes in the anatomy that we want. And it needs to be handled by a trained dentist that knows how to do this. And so Vivos has trained dentists all around the country, all around the world, really, that do this. And we've, like I say, we've treated, I don't know, 75, 80,000 patients now that very successfully with this. And it's a one and done thing. So you go through this treatment and you come out the other end and you're either all the way better or usually most of the way better. So to where you no longer have sleep apnea. So it just depends on your individual case and somewhat the skills of your doctor who's treating you, but we tend to get pretty consistent good results nowadays.
That sounds fantastic. It's like I'm not sure why that wouldn't be basically the gold standard of care. Like, why are we
Well, because
slapping CPAP machines on people and calling it a day?
Well, because it's new and because it's delivered by dentists. So the medical profession has kind of been, okay, you dentists, what do you know? What are you doing? And they kind of look down on them. And so, it's just a matter of time before the medical community wakes up. I tell you, when the FDA gave us a clearance to treat severe sleep apnea, ours are the only oral devices in the world that have been cleared by the FDA to treat moderate and severe sleep apnea in children and severe sleep apnea in adults. So it's right now on par. Now, for the first time, that puts us right on the same playing field with CPAP. And so, we just tell patients, look, you have, like, if Jennifer, if you were the patient and we determined you had sleep apnea, I would say to you, look, you have two options to manage your disease. You can have a CPAP that Darth Vader mask that was really sexy and it's lots of fun. But then, or that's door number one, and you can do that every night for the rest of your life until you die. And then door number two is you can wear a mandibular advancement device, which will pull your jaw forward until you can no longer chew your food. That's door number two. Or you can restore and rehabilitate your airway in door number three, and that's the Vivos appliances, which actually, 9 to 12 months in and out of treatment. And in most cases, you're going to get mostly better. And in about a third of the cases, you're going to get all the way better. And there again, that then you're one and done in treatment. And I think out of those, tens of thousands of patients, we rarely retreat somebody after we treat them once. They're happy, they're feeling better, even if they didn't get all the way to no OSA remaining, and it's just a mild case or it's none at all. Then they're happy and they move along in their life, and they no longer have to lug around their CPAP. We get a lot of patients they're just tired of using their CPAP and they just want something else.
Yeah, I couldn't handle the noise. The noise would keep me awake, so it would sort of defeat the purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Is it covered by dental or health insurance?
It's covered mostly by commercial insurance. We have versions of our devices that are covered by Medicare, and so it's got some coverage. It's not fully covered, so most patients are going to have to come out of pocket to sort of subsidize that a little bit. But when you think about it, uh, to be able to breathe, and maybe it's the cost of an orthodontic case when you're done. I mean, who yeah, I mean, most people can figure out how to pay for it. We found ways to get creative and help patients find the resources to make that happen. So
Yeah, I'd rather be fixed or cured, whatever the right word is, than basically just treating the problem.
oh yeah, no,
And as I've said, the CPAP is not not something for me.
yeah. Well, I just to be clear, the FDA has not they have not granted us a clearance to say that we cure anything. But when you have OSA, when you start treatment and you don't have OSA, when you finish treatment, I don't know if you want to call that a cure or not. I mean, but we're not authorized to say that. But let's just say that almost everybody gets mostly better, and some people get all the way better, and then whatever you want to call that. But
Sounds like remission. Maybe that's the right word.
or we say resolve it, or it's gone into remission. There's lots of words we can use. We just can't say the C word there. So
That's so funny.
yeah,
I wonder what their reasoning for that is. I'm sure there's a logical reason.
yeah.
But
They don't want they don't want people making wild claims about things, and so that's fine.
yeah, so that's fair.
We play by the rules, so.
So I'm trying to think. So what I feel like I get a pretty good night's sleep. I don't wake up tired. If I wake up, if I've had a crappy night's sleep,
Yeah.
I wake up and my brain is like, "Ooh, let's have donuts or pastries," or "Ooh, let's go to the bakery." And like, no, I don't eat that stuff because that stuff will hang around on me forever.
Well, it's interesting if you have an alcoholic beverage late at night, or if you have a meal late with heavy carbohydrates like spaghetti or something like that, your sleep that night and your sleep apnea will be worse. And so just sort of there's ways that people can manage some of this a little bit just by monitoring the timing, and if they're going to drink alcohol, try not to drink it in the evening hours after a certain time or in excess, or you will have sleep apnea. I mean, it's just going to be there. So avoid that as much as possible, and try to lay off the heavy carbs late at night. That's we treated a particular 7 foot athlete that everybody would recognize here, Hall of Fame type guy, known to have sleep apnea. We treated him very effectively. One of the challenges we had was to get him to stop eating, platefuls or bucketfuls of spaghetti in the middle of the night when he would wake up. We did have a very successful outcome with him, but it takes sometimes um, more than just an oral appliance. And in his case, he had failed CPAP 11 times,
Oof.
failed normal oral appliances 4 times. We put him into our care devices, you call Vivos care devices that we've been talking about here. And within 6 months, we had him just feeling better, shed some weight, back in the gym, just a whole new lease on life. So this actually can have such a profound effect on people, even if you're a 7 foot tall Hall of Fame type athlete guy. You can respond to this. I mean, you can imagine his airway is nothing to.
Typical.
It's quite an airway. Let's just say that. So
Yeah, I'm 5'2", so I can only imagine what nearly 20 plus inches more frame body. Like, good night. No, thank
so
you.
I'm 6'3", and I was standing next to him and felt like a midget. I don't know if I can say that word anymore, not politically correct, but I felt like I was so small. And it's the first time in my life that I've been around somebody where I literally felt like I was he just, and his hand was just ginormous. I mean, it was amazing. But anyway, so yeah, we've treated A-list movie stars and singers and people with all kinds of conditions, and have had great outcomes there. Donny Osmond is a patient of ours. It's just lots of people, lots of people.
Fascinating. Well, I did not know that sleep apnea is correlated. I can talk.
Comorbid.
Yes, that's the word I was trying to spit out, to so many other diseases. And I like to share with my listeners and followers on social media how we can better protect our brain health. Because for those of us who have had to care for somebody whose brain health is terrible, like my mom had Alzheimer's for more than 20 years.
Yeah.
My maternal grandmother had vascular dementia. My maternal great grandmother had dementia. And my dad's side of the family is diabetes. So it's like, brain health is my daily, it's just an absolute must part of my life. So
well, the more we learn, the more we like stay away from the donuts, because the keto type diet is helping delay some of those symptoms and postpone some of the onset of those things. So there's so much that we're learning now about all that stuff. And diet and sleep are coming to the forefront of things we need to do, things we can do to make our lives better and more full.
Well, this sounds like breathing is obviously very necessary. So I really appreciate that you have shared all this wonderful information with my listeners, because I love it when I learn something new. And so I'm hoping that they do, and they can take action to, protect their brain health, because caregivers are frequently sleep deprived because of their care. So let's help them get better sleep when they're getting enough, by treating any possible sleep apnea.
All right. Sounds good. Jennifer, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.